Hello. Well, I just went and saw a movie. It's actually a movie I've wanted to see for a long time that I haven't gotten to see yet. And as luck would have it, I was able to see it in an actual theater. Don't worry though, I've made sure to follow proper guidelines, and so should you. Anyway, I'm gonna cut to the chase. I just saw Rocky for the first time. Adrian! So initial thoughts? I thought it was pretty good. I definitely can see why it's a beloved film. I definitely thought it was a pretty good example of the downtrodden guy gets to make something of himself and do something big story. It was, in a way, a little odd watching this film because my generation grew up with the Sylvester Stallone who was in full caricature mode.
I'm taking this to the next level!
But it was nice seeing him playing a more subdued character who actually felt like a real person. Admittedly, not the brightest guy, but I could see how he would be charming to someone like Adrian. And Adrian was endearing, even if her whole thing initially started with that bad cliche from old movies of, hey, let's cast someone who's clearly really attractive, but let's pretend she's not until she takes her glasses off. Also, with what I had heard about these films beforehand, I was expecting Apollo Creed to be a completely one-dimensional douchebag. I'm gonna beat you up, Rocky Balboa. I don't like you. Type. Instead, I actually found myself kind of charmed by Apollo. I mean, yeah, sure, he's a bit full of himself, but he is the big champ of the world. And well, he did put up a damn good fight against Rocky. I also really like the Mickey character, which isn't surprising because I've always loved Burgess Meredith and stuff. I mean, his Penguin's one of my favorite things in the Adam West era of Batman. He starred in some of the Twilight Zone episodes that are among my favorites. And he is such a wonderfully crass scene stealer in the Grumpy Old Men movies. Now, there were a few things in the film that came off to me as dated that I didn't really enjoy that much. For instance, the character of Paulie. I never understood people all saying that he was a beloved character because to me he was a reprehensible, pukey douchebag. Always yelling and berating at Adrian, trying to guilt trip Rocky. Also, the scene of Rocky talking to the little teenage girl about how she needs to stop acting all crass and sarcastic because that'll scare away boys who would want to date her. That part was very cringy. Admittedly, that scene does end with Rocky basically telling himself that he was not in no place to give life advice to someone. One aspect of this film I wasn't expecting but found interesting was it really does take its time in developing Rocky's character and showing just how sad his life has been and how, well, quite frankly, he's basically a loser with no prospects. That is until he finally gets his chance at fighting Apollo. And even though he technically doesn't win the match with Apollo, he does basically show that he can make something of himself and that he was able to basically fight Apollo to a draw. I mean, let's face it, if this were a movie made today, all that stuff in the first third of the film about how much of a sad loser he starts out as, that would be barely 10-15 minutes of a movie now. Because now it would be like, no, we gotta get right to him being challenged to a boxing match and make it all about prepping for the match and then the match. And the ending, well, a little hammy, was sweet and kind of funny with how when the match ends, so does the film. It just cuts right to credits. In all, if I were to give Rocky a letter grade, I would give it a solid B+. It is really enjoyable, has a little bit of hinkiness to it in regards to some of the characters, but overall, it's worth watching. And come on, who here doesn't get a little amped up whenever they hear that theme? It definitely deserves its status as a beloved movie from the 70s. Especially one that's surprisingly not that grim and gritty, which is very unusual to find from that decade. So yeah, if you like this video, don't forget to subscribe and ring the bell. Hope you have a nice day.